Alright, welcome back and to another deck build video. This one is going to be on the Gave Guru Spores that I built last week. This one is what LeBron submitted to me. So what we've got here is I'm going to talk about some things that I added this week to the deck. So we'll start out with the artifacts. Thematic Compass is the first thing that I added here. So I've been collecting these for a minute. They're pretty decent artifacts. So it's the 2-drop artifact. The ability is 3, tap it, search your library for a basic land card, reveal it, put it into your hand, then shuffle your library. At the beginning of your end step, if you control 7 or more lands, transform Thematic Compass. And it flips into the Spires of Orazca, I suppose. Anyway, tap, add a colorless mana to your mana pool. Tap, untap target attacking creature and opponent controls and remove it from a combat. I'm a big fan of this card, not only because of what it does on the Compass's ability, which is searching your library for that land and putting it into your hand. It's really great early on. It'll help you fix a little bit. But also the flip ability is pretty solid, especially if you need to get through and do damage. The next thing I added was a land, Karn's Bastion. It's pretty simple. It taps for colorless, and you tap 4, tap it, proliferate. That's it. Choose any number of permanent center players and give each another counter of the kind already there. This is a pretty decent War of the Spark card, so fairly easy to get, I'm assuming, as of now. It's risen in price since it came out. Now it's about $4. I'm a big fan of this card. I played it quite a bit whenever I was using mostly War of the Spark cards. So this is a great one because we're dealing with the counters on Gave Guru Spores. The refresher on that one is your commander is a white, green, black, 2 colorless. When he enters the battlefield, he comes in with 5/1/1 counters on it. And you pay 1 colorless. Remove a 1/1 counter from a creature you control. Create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. Or you can pay 1 colorless, sacrifice a creature, put a 1/1 counter on target creature. So what you're going to be doing with this deck, obviously, is you'll be making saplings and moving counters around. So then, with that in mind, the next thing I'm going to go over to is a bunch of creatures I added to this one. So Azmira, the Holy Avenger. She is white, green, 2 colorless for our flying 2/3, legendary. At the end of each turn, put a 1/1 counter on Azmira, Holy Avenger, for each creature card put into your graveyard from play that turn. Well, since we're doing a lot of the sacrificing off of Gave, of these sapling tokens, or any creature really, then she'll get pretty big pretty fast, and she'll be flying 2/3, which I think is really neat. Plus, you can take a 1/1 counter from her if you want to, and use it for other things. So I think this is a really cool card. It's fairly inexpensive at $4 as well, but a great addition to this deck. And at 4-drop, she's really good. The next one will be Fertilid. So Fertilid is from Ikoria, is where I got it from. It's been reprinted into the Commander. I'm not sure if it was around before that, but this was the first time that I messed with it was in Ikoria. It's really inexpensive at 2 cents, but in my opinion, it's a fantastic card and a little bit of a staple in a deck like this. So what you're working with is 1 green, 2 colorless Elemental, 0/0. Fertilid enters the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on it. Pay a green and a colorless. Remove a 1/1 counter from Fertilid. Target player searches their library for a basic land card, puts it on the battlefield tab, and shuffles their library. Oh man, the applications for this and this deck are going to be fantastic. So what you're looking at is maybe abusing what you can do with Gave to sacrifice a creature and put a 1/1 counter on Fertilid. You can proliferate onto Fertilid. You can double it with the Panharmonicon that's in here. There's a lot that you can do to increase the number of counters on Fertilid, and in exchange, you can pay 2 each turn to go get a land, basic land, and sling it onto the battlefield. So for this deck, I think that's a really cool choice. A really good budget choice too. And the last one that I've added to this is Skullbriar, the Walking Grave. So he's a green and a black. Legendary creature, zombie elemental. He is a 1/1, he has haste, and when he Skullbriar, the Walking Grave, deals combat damage to a player, you put a 1/1 counter on it. Counters remain on Skullbriar as it moves to any zone other than a player's hand or library. So the neat thing you can do with this guy, obviously you can put a whole bunch of counters on him from Gave, and he's got haste, so you can move all those onto him, and he's pretty cheap. And also, any counters that you wind up putting on the Skullbriar is going to stay on him. Now, with the way that Gave goes, you can, sacrifice that creature, Skullbriar, right? And put a 1/1 counter on another creature, and then you can reanimate Skullbriar or bring him back in some way. And whenever you do that, he's coming back with that many 1/1 counters on him that he left with. So that's pretty cool. This would be an awesome commander to build as well, because you can bring him out, and if he goes back, then you just keep putting counters on him. But yeah, right now he's looking at around $5 to $6 or $7. Around here where I live, I've seen them anywhere between $6 to $9, depending on the condition of the card. I finally picked one up today for about $8. But as far as the deck goes, there's still some work that needs to be done on it. Obviously, it's a little bit over than what I wanted to have for the amount of lands and the amount of other cards in the deck, but I'm working on that one. I also need to figure out how I want to do my distribution. So I'm looking at, I've got about 54% of this is showing that it's going to be green, and then I've got about 23% is black, and about 22% is white. So not too bad. The green is always going to be a real big one, I believe, because you're doing all your ramp, and there's a lot of multicolor for it. It kind of dominates decks, to be fair, and this one's no exception. The white is definitely the minority, but the few white cards we do have are pretty great. As far as everything that's gone into it, let me go over real quick, and we'll talk about what we have in here. So we got the Augur of Autumn, which is new from the Innistrad. So 2 green, 1 colorless. Human, 2/3. You may look at the top card of your library anytime. You may play lands from the top of your library. And then Coven, as long as you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, you may cast creature spells from the top of your library. And with this deck, my goodness, that's easy to do. There's going to be another card in here that's white that'll do the same type of thing as far as the Coven effect goes. And I'm pretty excited to show you that one to you. Beledros Witherbloom, one of the cards that I absolutely have been wanting to play with for a while. So 1 green, 1 black, 5 colorless, flying, 4/4. Beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 black and green pest creature token. When this creature dies, you gain 1 life. Pay 10 life, untap all lands you control, activate this ability once each turn. So for this, honestly, you'll be doing that quite a bit, maybe once. The next one is Khazor, Ruthless Stalker, 1 green, 3 colorless. He partners with Akima, Stalking Shadow, but because we're not running blue in this one, we can't have the partner in here. However, he's good by himself because when a creature you control does combat damage to a player, put a 1/1 counter on that creature. So with this one, I'm thinking about making a bunch of tokens that'll attack. We also have about 22 creatures in total in this deck that can swing out along with Gave. So then you're doubling up on some tokens. And then you're moving your tokens around, your 1/1 counters, You're moving your 1/1 counters around. Next is Circle of Dreams Druid. Well, this one is from the D&D set. So it's got 3 green, and it's tap, add a green for each creature you control. Why not? There's going to be a lot you can do with this one. Eternal Witness, 2 green, 1 colorless. When it enters the battlefield, you may return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Pretty self-explanatory. We already went through the Fertilid. We have Karametra's Acolyte, 1 green, 3 colorless. Add an amount of green to your mana pool equal to your devotion to green. This one you'll have a pretty decent devotion to green in here, either with some of the enchantments that you run, but mostly from your creatures. The enchantment's going to be mostly dominated by white, as it should be, but you'll have a pretty decent devotion. I think it's just a good card, and it can be sacrificed if you don't need it. Then we went with Lisa, Forgotten Archangel. Black, 2 white, 2 colorless. Flying, lifelink 4/5. When another non-token creature you control dies, return that card to its owner's hand at the beginning of the next end step. If a creature an opponent controls would die, exile it instead. So you're getting exiles off of that one. You're flying your lifelink. Plus, you're able to sacrifice those non-tokens, which you'll want to do at some point. Then we got Lantern War Druid. 1 green, 1 colorless. Elf, 1/2. Tap, sacrifice the Lantern War Druid, untap all forest. And of course, that's great because we are running in here Yavimaya, Cradle of Growth, and we'll have a good bit of forest because of the ratio of lands. The next one is going to be Mazarek, which is kind of what brought me to build this deck in the first place. So you've got a green, black, 3 colors, flying. When a player sacrifices another permanent, put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. He's a 2/2. Great card. Actually going up in price. I picked him up for about $3 a few weeks ago. So I'm thinking that people are really catching on. He was reprinted Double Masters. Insect Shaman. I think he'd be really good with that Insect Commander that's a Planeswalker people are talking about. The next one is Monoscalion. 2 colorless. Monoscalion enters the battlefield with a 1/1 counter on it. 1 colorless. Remove a 1/1 counter from Monoscalion. It deals 1 damage to any target. Obviously, with this one, we're going to be looking at using this as some type of win con or maybe able to ping things with that 1 damage to any target because we're moving 1/1 counters from Gave over to Monoscalion. So that's a pretty neat thing in my opinion. Mycolith we have talked about already, but we'll go over again if you don't know what it is. 2 green, 3 colorless, Devour 2. As this enters the battlefield, you may sacrifice any number of creatures. This creature enters the battlefield with twice that many 1/1 counters on it. So you're generating a bunch of tokens, and you're sacrificing the Mycolith. This is a staple in any Aristocrats deck. Anything that has tokens, you're going to be running a Mycolith. Because, at the beginning of your upkeep, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token for each 1/1 counter on Mycolith. So a lot of times this guy's a win con. You're being able to make all those tokens, and then you're sacrificing them to Gave, or you're bouncing Mycolith back in. Next one is one of my personal favorites from my Ikoria. It's Nethroi, Apex of Death. Green, black, white, and 2 colorless. Legendary creature, Nightmare Cat Beast. You can mutate him for 4 colorless, a green or a white, and 2 black. He also has Death Touch Lifelink. When this creature mutates, return any number of target creature cards with total power 10 or less from your graveyard to the battlefield. Just a solid ability. I'd mutate him on anything, really. You can mutate him onto the top so that he comes in as a 5/5, and then you get whatever number of counters that are on the creature you mutated onto him so that he can be like a 10/10 or whatnot. The mutate's a little bit high at 7, but you are running green, so you should have the mana to do it. It's a decent ability as well. I'm personally a big fan of Mutate. The next one we have is Safi, Eric's Daughter. You got a white and a green, legendary creature, a human scout. Sacrifice Safi, Eric's Daughter. When target creature is put into a graveyard from play this turn, return that card to play. So, you also add, that's a really cool ability so that you can sacrifice things and bring them right back. It's a little bit of a regenerated ability, except they don't come into play tap. Next one is Sereth the Viper's Fang. 2 green, 2 colorless. Other tap creatures you control have Death Touch. Other untapped creatures you control have Hexproof. 1 tap, untapped target creature or land you control. Then we got Skullbriar that we talked about. Skyshroud Ranger, 1 green, tap them. You may put a land card from your hand into play. Only during as a sorcery. Next one is Stalwart Pathlighter. Now this is the other one with Coven that I was talking about earlier. We've got 1 white, 2 colorless, Vigilance, 3/1, Coven. At the beginning of combat on your turn, if you control 3 or more creatures with different powers, creatures you control gain indestructible till end of turn. Again, Coven is pretty easy to do in this deck because you're moving 1/1 counters around all over the place. And making all of your little boys indestructible, that's a pretty cool thing to do. So, this is a really cheap card at 50 cents. it's pretty solid, not just in this deck, but anything that'll have different powers and toughness. The next one we'll look at is Suture Priest. 1 white, 1 colorless. When another creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain a life. When a creature enters the battlefield under opponent's control, you may have that player lose 1 life as a 1/1. So this is a great card. A lot of people run it in Cleric's deck when they do Cleric Tribal, but this is great in here because you're popping out those creatures and as you're moving your tokens around or you're creating ones. Then we've got Verdus Gearhulk. So 2 green, 3 colorless, trample. He's a construct, artifact creature. 4/4. When he enters the battlefield, distribute 4 1/1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. Then you have Void Strider. I've played him for a very long time when he first came out. So he's a black and he's 2 colorless. When Void Strider enters the battlefield, create a 0/1 white goat creature token. Sacrifice another creature to scry 1. And then he has Escape to where it's 2 black, 3 colorless, and exile 4 cards from your graveyard. And he comes in the battlefield with 2 1/1 counters on him when he escapes. So he's a great target to sacrifice. You can sacrifice other creatures besides him to scry, which I'm a big fan of. And then whenever he dies, you just simply escape him, bring him back on with 1/1 counters, shuffle those 1/1 counters around so that you can make more guys and then use those to scry with. Plus, he's going to be entering with a goat. So he's going to be a great addition to this deck. He'll allow you to scry, something that I believe you'll need. So let's talk about some of the spells we got here. So we got Abrupt Decay. Spell can be countered, destroy target non-land permanent, converted mana cost 3 or less, green and a black. Instant speed. Beast Within, green, 2 colors, destroy target permanents and controller creates a 3/3 beast token. You'll notice with a lot of these, they're targeting permanents, not just creatures. Because we want to be able to get rid of planeswalkers, lands, and enchantments, something that a lot of decks have a hard time with. Early Harvest, 2 green, 1 colorless, target player untaps all basic lands he or she controls. Harness Infinity, 3 green, 3 black, and 1 colorless. Exchange your hand in your graveyard, exile Harness Infinity. I really like this card, it's just a really neat card. Lure of Prey, 2 green, 2 colorless. Play only if an opponent successfully casts a summon spell this turn. Put a green summon card from your hand into play as though it were just play. Pledge of Unity. White, green, 1 colorless. Put a 1/1 counter on each creature you control. You gain 1 life for each creature you control. Rapid Vigor. 1 green, 1 colorless. Regenerate each creature you control. And that will be our instance. So now we're going to go over to sorceries real quick. We have 18 of these. Blessings of Nature. It's got a Miracle of Green, which is really what I wanted to play it for. But you have 1 green, 4 colorless for the regular. And distribute 4 1/1 counters among any number of target creatures you control. Dam, 2 black with overload of 2 white and 2 colorless. Destroy target creature. Creature destroyed this way can be regenerated. And if you overload it for the 2 white, 2 colorless, then that will be each. Dryad's Revival, 1 green, 2 colorless. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. This is great to get some of those spells back, get some of those creatures back, but I would do it mostly to get spells back and play them again. And then also as a flashback so that you can do it again for 1 green and 4 colorless. Eaten Alive, another spot removal. This one is black, additional cost to cast a spell, sacrifice a creature, or pay 1 black, 3 colorless, exile target creature or planeswalker. Grim Discovery, a personal favorite card of mine. 1 black, 1 colorless. Choose one or both. Return target creature card from your graveyard to your hand. Return target land card from your graveyard to your hand. That's just great all around. Especially if you want to start adding some of these fetch lands or things like that into this deck. Alright, you've got Life or Death. Oops, let's go back here. Clicked on that, I got too excited. It's a great card. So Life/Death. You've got Life, which is green. All lands you control become 1/1 creatures until end of turn. They're still lands. And then you have Death, which is 1 black, 1 colorless. Return target creature card from your graveyard to the battlefield. You lose life equal to its converted mana cost. So really, it's a really like 1 mana more expensive and sorcery speed Reanimate. And this is only like $3, man. I'm telling you, it's such a great card. Long Rest, a new one from the Forgotten Realms set. So 3 green and X. Return X target cards with different mana values from your graveyard to your hand. If 8 or more cards are returned to your hand this way, your life total becomes equal to your starting life total in Exile Long Rest. I like this because you're going for just straight up cards with different values. And in this one, you'll have creatures, you'll have spells. So I'm pretty excited for this card to play it. And 3 green next is not really a big deal. Planetary Birth, 1 white, 1 colorless. Put all basic lands from all graveyards into play under their owner's control, tapped. I like this because there is a card in here, Overgrown Estate, that wants you to sacrifice lands. There's a way to sacrifice lands in here, but also I think this is just a good way to cycle some lands back into the battlefield. Primal Growth, 1 green, 2 colorless, has a kicker of sacrifice a creature. Search your library for a basic land card, put it down on the battlefield, then shuffle your library. If Primal Growth was kicked, which is sacrificing a creature, instead search your library for up to 2 basic land cards, put them onto the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Notice it says put them onto the battlefield, but not tapped. So you're putting them on there untapped, you're able to use them right away, which isn't bad for 2 colorless and sacrificing, a sapling creature that you've created. Rite of Oblivion, another spot removal. Black and white, an additional cost to cast this spell, sacrifice a non-land permanent. Exile target non-land permanent, and you can flash it back for a black, a colorless, and 2 black, a white, and 2 colorless. So not too bad, and a 4 cost flashback is pretty solid. Rites of Spring. I really like this card. It's a really cool card. A way to stock your graveyard. So you got 1 green, 1 colorless. Discard any number of cards from your hand. Search your library for that many basic land cards. Reveal those cards and put them into your hand. Then shuffle your library. To me, this is a pretty neat way to go stock your graveyard and go get land cards. So for only 17-25 cents at most, this is a solid pickup, and it's really quick and easy to play. Sorcery speed, of course, but you're looking at 1 green and 1 colorless, and I think this is a great one. So Summer Bloom, you play up to 3 additional lands this turn, 1 green, 1 colorless. 3 visits, 1 green, 1 colorless. Search your library for a forest card, put that card into the battlefield, then shuffle your library. Untap, of course. Treasured Find, green, blacks, return green and black. Return target card from your graveyard to your hand. Exile Treasured Find. Just another way to get stuff back. Untamed Wilds, green, 2 colorless. Search your library for a basic land card, put that card into play, then shuffle your library. Of course, this is coming into play untapped. Vanquish the Horde, 2 white, 6 colorless. This spell costs 1 less to cast for each creature on the battlefield. Destroy all creatures. Vindicate, black, white, 1 colorless. Destroy target permanent. Visions of Dominance, green, 2 colorless. Sorcery speed. Put a 1/1 counter on target creature, then double the number of 1/1 counters on it. Flashback for 2 green, 8 colorless. This spell costs 8 less to cast. This way, where X is the greatest mana value of commander you own on the battlefield or in the command zone. Obviously, this is a commander-specific card. I think it's a very good card. It has a flashback with Gave, Guru of Spores, coming in with a bunch of counters on it. You could easily double the counters as soon as he comes out. And then if he gets put back in there, then this spell is getting super cheap to flashback. Alright, we've got enchantments now. Angelic Horse, 2 white, 3 colorless. When a creature enters the battlefield under your control, you gain life equal to its toughness. Initially a lot of these cards were just random pulls from a stack of cards that I've been wanting to build with. This is one of those. I'm not too big of a white player, but I think this is just a really neat card, a way for you to gain life. And there's not that many things in this deck that give you life, but I almost want to put in the Witherbloom Precon Commander in this deck because it lets you do 1/1 counters for each life you gain or lost this turn. So, I'm on the fence about putting it into this deck. I don't feel like there's enough life gain or life lost in this one. I may be wrong. I'll have to reassess that, but I'm also not sure where I would put it. I'm kind of pressed for spots in this deck right now anyway. But again, the Angelic Horse, it's pretty handy, especially if you're bringing in, really some of these bigger ones that are 4/4s. Borrowed Time is the next one. So 1 white, 2 colorless. Enchantment, when borrowed time enters the battlefield, exile target non-land permanent opponent controls until borrowed time leaves the battlefield. Into the Wilds, 1 green, 3 colorless. At the beginning of your upkeep, look at top card of your library. If it's a land card, you may put it into the battlefield. So pretty simple. Life and Limb, 1 green, 3 colorless. All forests and all saplings are 1/1 green sapling creatures and forest lands in addition to the other types. So the cool thing about that, about Life and Limb, this is one of the auto includes for this deck, I feel, because you're making saplings off of Gabe, Guru, or Spores. So with Gabe, again, his one ability says 1 colorless, remove a 1/1 counter from a creature you control, create a 1/1 green sapling creature token. And holy mackerel, if you got Life and Limb out there, then you just created yourself another forest land to play with. So I really like that. And, kind of going back and forth with this guy, which you have Life and Limb out. Oblivion Ring, 1 white, 2 colorless. When Oblivion Ring is battlefield, exile another target non-land permanent. When Oblivion Ring leaves the battlefield, return the exile card to the battlefield under control. Overgrown Estate is the one I was talking about earlier about sacrificing lands. I have a feeling that once you start getting this deck rocking and rolling, you have your mana dorks out there. You're generating mana based off the number of creatures you have. Your creatures are forest. Then you want to get life back. Then Overgrown Estates is going to be a way for you to sacrifice lands. And again, you've got all kinds of cards like Grim Discovery and then Planar Birth that allow you to get those basic lands back. I've been wanting to play this card for a very long time, so I'm glad that this deck was pushed onto my radar because I feel like this is a really good spot for it. And I think that you could probably do a mulch strategy with this deck somehow. The next one is Teleportation Circle. 1 white, 3 colorless enchantment at the beginning of your end step. Exile up to 1 target artifact or creature you control. Then return the card to the battlefield under its owner control. Obviously, you're going to be targeting Gabe, Guru, or Spores with this so that you can keep generating those 5/1/1 counters on him. But you can do this with anything in the deck, I feel. Vernal Bloom, 1 green, 3 colorless. When a forest is tapped for mana, its controller adds forest to her mana pool. So then, you're getting double up on those forests. Obviously, there's better ways to do this, but for this being just a grab all build, I thought this was a good inclusion. Now we'll go into the Planeswalkers. We've got Johnny the Great-Hearted, 1 white, 1 green, 2 colorless. Creatures you control have vigilance, which to me is a big deal in this deck. Your +1 is you gain 3 life, and your -2 is put a +1/+1 counter on each creature you control, and a loyalty counter on each Planeswalker you control. So really, that's not too bad. He comes in as a 5 loyalty. So right off the bat, I would be putting a +1/+1 counter on each creature I control. And then, of course, he's getting a loyalty counter on that. So it's really just a -1. This is actually quite a good Planeswalker, especially in these colors. If you really think about it, you can get your life gain trigger. You're giving vigilance to your creatures as a static ability. And you're moving that +1/+1 counter on each creature you control. And you're bumping up. Of course, the next Planeswalker we got is Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. 1 black, 1 white, 2 colorless. As long as it's your turn, creatures and Planeswalkers you control have lifelink. Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord. This is for +2. Sorin, Vengeful Bloodlord deals 1 damage to target creature, player, or Planeswalker. -X, return target creature card with converted mana cost X from your graveyard to the battlefield. That creature is a vampire in addition to its other types, and he is a 4 loyalty. The big reason I put him in here is that your creature and your Planeswalkers have lifelink, which is quite hilarious when you think about that. I felt like I had another Planeswalker in here that I'm not thinking about, or I didn't make the list. I'm not too sure. But, for sure these are in the deck right now. So, I think this is a really cool card, and it didn't really see a lot of play. Both of these from War of the Spark, quite a bit of War of the Spark in this deck, whenever it comes down to it. So let's look at our artifacts real quick. So I've got Crumbling Sanctuary, which is 5 colorless. For each 1 damage that would be dealt to a player, that player removes a top card of his or her library from the game instead. I just think this is a hilarious card. Because we're going wild with tokens, and you're popping stuff up with the +1/+1s, I think this would be just something really cool to play. If you're playing mill, man, you should really try to get this card. It's only about $1 right now. So if you can get your hands on it, man, I would absolutely go for it. The next one is Doubling Cube. So 2 colorless, 3 colorless, tap, double the amount of each type of mana in your mana pool. Mask of Griselbrand. This is a new one from Innistrad. Midnight Hunt. So 2 black, 1 colorless, legendary artifact equipment. Equipped creature has flying and lifelink. When a equipped creature dies, you may pay X life or X is its power. If you do, draw X cards and you equip for 3. Then we got the Panharmonicon, 4 colorless. If an artifact creature enters the battlefield causing a triggered ability of a permanent you control to trigger, that ability triggers an additional time. Phyrexian Splicer, 2 colorless. And for 2 colorless and tap them, choose Flying, First Strike, Trample, or Shadow. Target creature with that ability loses it until end of turn. Another target creature gains that ability. So, really in Commander, there's always going to be something with Flying, something with First Strike, something with Trample, or something with Shadow. It seems like you won't see Shadow a lot, but if you're playing against black decks or mono black decks, you'll see Shadow quite a bit. If you're playing against rogue decks, most of those have Shadow. So being able to take that ability and move it onto a creature that you control, that's pretty fantastic. This is an overlooked card as well. My first introduction to this card was on deployment. A fellow that I met, an old timer, he had a bunch of his old modern decks from back in the day. And he had a mono black deck, and Phyrexian Splicer was one of those cards in there, to where he would move things around. He would play like Thopter, the Ornithopter, which is a 0-drop with flying, and use Phyrexian Splicer's ability to put flying on an 8/8 demon. It was something else, man. Really cool way to do things and move stuff around. So the next thing we'll look at here is Talisman of Unity, 2 colorless. You can tap it to add a colorless, or you can tap it to add a green or a white, and it does 1 damage to you. We already talked about Thematic Compass, the newest edition, and then Thran Turbine. So Thran Turbine is 1 colorless. During your upkeep, you may add up to 2 colorless mana to your mana pool. This mana cannot be spent to play spells. So at first glance, it seems like this isn't a very good card, right? Because it's hitting during your upkeep, and you're adding those 2 colorless mana to your mana pool, but they can't be used as play spells. But the great thing is with this deck, there's so many cards in here that have activated abilities that you can activate during your upkeep that this card is fantastic. Let's just talk about Gabe's ability, to where you're doing the colorless to remove a 1/1 counter from a creature you control to create a 1/1 Saproling token, or using a colorless to sacrifice a creature and put a 1/1 counter on target creature. You can do this during your upkeep, and you're doing it for free, either one or both of them, however many times you want, as far as the 2 colorless mana goes from the Thran Turbine. So to me, this is a great card, and it's about $3 right now. But I think if you're doing activated abilities quite a bit, comes in clutch quite often. Let's run over to the lands real quick. Now the lands that I've got in this build, because this is just a prototype deck list that I've got now, I don't have the basic land slots filled, so these are just the fancy lands. So Field of Ruin, 2 tap, sacrifice Field of Ruin, destroy target non-basic land and opponent controls. Each player searches their library for basic land, puts it on the battlefield in the shuffle. Grasslands, enters battlefield tap. You can tap it to sacrifice it, search your library for a forest or plains card, put it on the battlefield, untap. Halls of Mist, cumulative upkeep of 1. No creatures can attack if it attacked during its controller's last turn. Hickory Woodlot comes into play tap with 2 depletion counters on it. Tap, remove a depletion counter from Hickory Woodlot, add 2 green mana to your mana pool. Then if no depletion counters on it, you sacrifice it. Karn's Bastion, we already went over this one. It was the newest edition. Mystifying Maze, tap, add colorless. 4, tap, exile target attacking creature opponent controls. At the beginning of the next end step, return it to the battlefield tapped under its owner's control. Overgrown Farmland, enters the battlefield tapped unless you control 2 or more other lands. Add a green or a white. Overgrown Tomb, green or black. Swamp Forest, enters the battlefield, pay 2 life. Undiscovered Paradise, tap, add 1 mana of any color to your mana pool. At the beginning of your next untap phase, return Undiscovered Paradise to its owner's hands. This is really great for landfall trigger decks. I put it in here just so I could hide it from myself, so I won't get rid of it. Also, I just like having my hand filled. Maybe I want to sacrifice it or discard a card. Then, of course, you have my Creative Growth, which is each land is a forest in addition to its other land types. So that's pretty much the deck list for Gave Guru of Spores and the additions that I've added to it. I'll be working on it because I've played a couple of games with it, and I think it's all right. It's interesting, and with the cards in it, it's a little bit different than what I'm used to playing. There are some things that are similar to it, but in general, it's pretty fun. It's an interesting build. If you got any comments about this or any thoughts, go ahead and put them in the comments section, and feel free to add anything else that you think would be good for this deck. And send me a deck list if you have one. You can post it in the comments section, or you can, get a hold of me some way and let me know. But for now, that's going to be it. Have a good night and have a great weekend, and we'll talk to you later. Oh, we'll have another video coming up probably this evening or tomorrow.